Hello, my name is Katie Van Ness, and the topic that I chose for my project was the rights of students with disabilities who are homeless. So, to get started, we're going to do a little pre test, pre quiz, just to see what you know. You got to do your best. That's all you can do. All you're going to do is put your name at the top and answer each question on the little spot provided. Don't look at anybody else's answers. Just try your best. So I'm going to pass that out, and I'm going to go through it with you quick, and we'll save that for the end to go back. Well, actually, we're going to hold on to it, and then we'll find out the answers later and see if you've learned something through this. All right. So our first question is: how many students are labeled homeless each year in the United States? Second question is, are students who are homeless more or less likely to have a disability? Number three, what is the challenge that a student who is homeless and has a disability faces? Number four, who does the McKinney-Vento Act protect? And last one is, if a student and their family are living in a shelter, what act protects them? So you might not have known any of them, and you might not have known all of them. So we're going to dive a little deeper into this. All right, so I chose this topic because I am a teacher in a Title I elementary school. A school is labeled Title I when there are at least 40% of students in the school that are considered to be economically disadvantaged. And that's from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So a lot of we do actually have a decent amount of students in our school that are considered homeless. So this kind of, I could relate to this. I could relate to a situation with a student I had last year. And so that's why I chose this topic. But these students are facing more adversity than the typical student. They are not only having a disability, but they don't have a consistent home. We don't know what their family life is like, but their lives must be very, very difficult and challenging for the parents as well. But there are laws that protect these students, but we really need parents and family involved and working together as best as we all can, just with that child or that student in mind. So let's talk about some statistics. Every year, 1.2 million students are labeled homeless in our country. That number really surprised me. And students with disabilities actually make up 14% of our total population. The students with disabilities make up 19% of the homeless students. So those are some pretty big numbers that are pretty concerning and alarming. But like I said, we do have laws that protect these students. Um, we just have to know how to utilize them. There's definitely barriers when we're talking about students with disabilities that are also homeless. These students are kind of given a really rough start at life. They're switching schools frequently because their place that they live might change. If they're living with a friend, the friend might make them leave. Um, there's all different dynamics that are really creating these barriers for these students. So switching schools is a big one. Transportation then, because if a if a student is going to a school wherever they're currently living and they have to move, it's going to be very difficult for their family to transfer to get them to school each day if they're not in the zone for a bus or transportation through the school district. Because most likely, if they don't have a home, they probably don't have a method of transportation themselves. Also, with that changing of schools, they're also going to have a delay in paperwork. So they're not going to end up getting the services that they need as soon as needed. And they're going to face behavioral issues. They're going to face depression. They're going to face anxieties, feeling like they don't belong because they're switching so frequently. Um, a lot of times these homeless families are with single parents, so they don't have that support from both sides, both parents. And that makes it really difficult on the parent as well, because they might be going through all this alone, essentially. And finally, another barrier is, to me, like one of the biggest ones, is that they're not able to truly form bonds with their teachers and their aides and different people that can be really great advocates for them, because it's really hard to get to know these kids and see what their behaviors and patterns and their needs are when we're not with them every day consistently. Attendance is going to be an issue, And so we're not always able to give these kids the services and the care that they need because they're kind of being ripped out of the school a lot of times without even notice. I had a student that was homeless, and she left the school and I didn't even know it. And that was very hard, not just for the student, obviously, but also for the teacher and the class, because the classmates were, really worried about her. All right, so let's talk about some things that protect our students with disabilities and are homeless. Does anyone know what the McKinney-Vento Act is? Okay, so the McKinney-Vento Act is a law that ensures that pre-K through 12 students who are homeless have fair educational rights. And that is from Schoolhouse Connection. This is a federal law that applies to every student in the United States of America. Under this act, the term homeless student is kind of defined, and it applies to school-age students who don't have that fixed, regular place to stay. We that are not home. If you're not homeless, at the end of the day, you're going home to your home and your bed. Someone who is homeless does not always feel that way, so that considers them homeless. As well as they could be just staying with someone. They don't have their own place of residence. That is still considered homeless under this act. This is also a great thing to know about for people that have a child that is homeless and with disabilities. They are guaranteed to have those fair educational rights as any other student. These states and schools must comply with the requirements to these homeless students. If a teacher recognizes that a student is potentially homeless, they need to take that to their administration so that they can look into it and identify if that student is indeed homeless, so that they can start to provide, take the necessary actions into what this student is or what they're required to do for the student. So within that, there are liaisons in each public school. There is one liaison that is mandated by the law to perform certain duties, which they are trained and learn to go through with. They have to identify the child as homeless, so they have certain criteria and boxes they have to check to make sure that this person is indeed homeless. And then they help to provide opportunities for the student that they might not have. If they don't have socks, if they don't have a good pair of shoes, they're going to help, set them up for, okay, this weekend there is a clothing drive. This is where there's food banks. They're giving them those opportunities to have what they need. They're also going to facilitate referrals. So if the student doesn't have a dentist and they've never been to the dentist or they haven't been in a few years, they're going to refer them to a local dentist, and also help them get there if need be by providing some form of transportation. They're just giving them these referrals, giving them, they're advocating for them. This liaison also has to attend professional development where they are learning better ways to serve these students, and also help their parents as well. And like I stated earlier, this service is to be advertised in places where parents can see it. So, there's a stigma around being homeless and having children with disabilities and not wanting to really accept that and get help for that. So putting up signs at the front desk where parents might come in to pick their kids up, or sending home a little paper with everyone at open house when they when they come back to school, because maybe they're homeless now and they weren't before. So really advertising those services so that these kids get the help that they need. All right. And we might have all heard about this famous monumental act. There's the Individuals with Disabilities Act, which is also IDEA. This is free, appropriate public education. So it's known for ensuring that all students who have disabilities are provided with a free, appropriate education, which is also FAPE, and that is from the National Center for Homeless Education. It is a right that's protected federally, that children with disabilities are entitled to special education in public schools. And IDEA does define special education as specially designed instruction that meets the unique needs of a student that the parents do not have to pay for. It's public, free, appropriate education. So this act really protects our kids with disabilities as well. They are meeting the needs of these students with no charge to parents, which is huge because, if you got outside help for some things, that would be needing to be funded by the family. So this is something that should be a big part of this topic. So they're providing protection. That is what the main goal of this is. So in North Carolina, since that's where we live, there's a few things that these children with disabilities and are homeless have rights in our state as well. So free and public education, FAPE, that is probably the biggest one that we've heard of. All students with a disability are able to continue to receive that free and appropriate education until they actually reach the age of 22. So it's students between the ages of 3 to 21. So once they turn that 22, then they cannot be in that system anymore. There's also another act that is called the Every Student Succeeds Act, and that's ESSA. So this is an act that really protects these kids from any fault, having any fault in this. It excuses them from absences or tardies, poor scores if they're not performing well. Might be because of their situation and their disability. This is no fault of their own. So this act is really big on supporting those kids so that they're not ever paying for what life has handed them. So overall, this was really interesting for me just to really dive deep into. I feel that there are rights and resources for homeless students with disabilities, but because of that stigma and maybe the embarrassment of the parents, I don't feel like parents are always utilizing all the resources that they could be. Like I kind of stated earlier, I had a student last year that we found out was homeless, was living in her car, and the parents were very hesitant to accept help. And it was really hard because, at Christmas, she would say that she didn't have a Christmas tree. And, they were little kids, they're kindergartners. So it was hard to see that because that made her feel like it was her fault. So there are so many services out there and ways to protect these kids. We just need to make sure we're utilizing them and understanding them as educators so that we can also be that first step or that first connection. I think school liaisons should be more proactive. I didn't really hear too much about my situation, so I think that there's a lot of kids that these people are helping. So maybe there needs to be more than one within a school, as based on the size of the school or how many homeless children that they have. These children are facing more adversity than a typical student. Obviously, they're also facing more adversity than just a homeless or just a student with a disability. They are homeless and they are struggling with living with a disability. And I just really feel like these children deserve that chance. So knowing these things as educators is so important for them. All right, so to wrap it up, we're going to go back and we're going to go over we did our pre-test and now we're going to do our post-test. So I'm going to I'm not going to put that up yet though. I'm going to hand out your paper and this is your post-test. I'm going to see if you can answer these questions now on your own. So you're going to get a post-test, put your name at the top, and I'm going to read the questions again to you. All right, number 1, how many students are labeled homeless each year in the United States? Number 2, are students who are homeless more or less likely to have a disability? Number 3, what is a challenge that a student who is homeless and has a disability faces? Number 4, what does the McKinney-Vento Act protect? And number 5, if a student and their family are living in a shelter, what act protects them? So I'm going to put this up here. These are the answers, and I want you to check your answers and match up and see and make corrections if you got any wrong. So I'm going to leave that up there for you. And let me first show you here's my references. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to leave that up for you all to check your work. I hope you guys learned something from this, and thanks for listening. Bye.